Hello again, students. I'm recording this screencast to provide a little bit of context and discussion for the assigned reading for Tuesday, 25th of March. And that assigned reading is Roger Payne's Songs of Humpback Whales. And I think you'll appreciate that article a little bit more if you know a little bit about what else was going on in the world and how that article connected to some really important historical developments. So I'm going to give you that context in the form of a presentation. So what we read is the top item here, Songs of Humpback Whales, a peer-reviewed article published by Roger Payne and Scott McVeigh. You might be interested to know that the same year that article was published, an LP, a vinyl record with recordings of the actual songs themselves was also released. That was in 1970. We have to go back a little bit farther to understand what the United States was like at this moment. So I think this is a fascinating statistic. In the mid-1960s, half of the total U.S. population was under the age of 25. The country was very, very young. At no other time have people that young made up a majority of the U.S. population. And that helps to explain, I think, some of the countercultural movements and some really important legislation that appeared shortly after this population demographic fact occurred. So in 1964, the Wilderness Act is passed, which dictates that there are going to be some places in the United States where humankind will only go as a visitor and will not stay, and prohibits roads in those areas. 1970 saw the passage of the Clean Air Act. It's kind of hard to imagine the world as we have come to know it without that piece of legislation. 1970 was also the year of the first Earth Day, and that is coming up next month, Earth Day, so I hope you'll mark your calendars. And of course, 1970 is the year that that album was released by Roger Payne, Songs of the Humpback Whale. And I can't record sounds from my computer using this piece of software, so feel free to go to YouTube and just type in Songs of the Humpback Whale and listen to some whale song. It's actually pretty soothing, and I know that a lot of us are dealing with some stress and some anxiety right now. So have a listen and try to mellow out a little bit. And of course, the article was also published. 1972 sees the Clean Water Act. Much like the Clean Air Act, the world was pretty different before the passage of that piece of legislation. There were rivers in Ohio that would catch on fire. Some sources of water were so badly polluted that water, a river, which is water, would catch on fire. Just unbelievable, given that water puts out fire normally. So if we think the world is in bad shape now, and I'm not saying it's not, but there was some progress in the 60s and 70s. The reason I'm bringing up all this context is because Roger Payne's work is part of this larger environmental movement. And his proving or his establishing that humpback whales are capable of songs inspired a 10-year global moratorium on whaling. So no one was supposed to kill any whales for 10 years once the world realized that they were not giant mindless fish, but they were in fact pretty sophisticated mammals who had the ability to produce some things that usually we'd say only humans can produce. Songs, right? Songs, not just bird song repeated on a short loop, but long, complex, developing, changing songs. And then just to round out our little history of environmental legislation, 1974 saw the passage of the Endangered Species Act. Now, I hope it's become second nature for you all when you're reading peer-reviewed scholarly articles to focus on a few key things. to think about the discipline out of which this research is coming. So Roger Payne is a marine biologist. So obviously he is in the natural sciences division, and he is in biology and specifically marine biology. And I hope that was very clear. I hope you were picking up on that as you were reading his work on whale song. Just a reminder, right? This is a peer-reviewed scholarly article, so it is written for other experts in the field. I'm not expecting you all to understand everything that Roger Payne is saying, in part because you're not really his primary audience. But I hope you're paying attention to some of the most important features of the article so that you can grasp the basics. And because of the audience that he has, we see that reflected in his style. He is very careful about any kind of terminology. There's more than a paragraph where he defines exactly what he means by song, which is something that in a non-peer-reviewed publication, people could pretty much take for granted. If I say song, I can rest pretty confident that you know what I mean. But as a scientist publishing something for an audience of scientists, Roger Payne has to be very precise about what he means by song. And I hope you picked up on as well the way that he is breaking new ground. What he is saying is new under the sun. As far as he knows, as far as he has been able to determine, people really weren't thinking about the noises that whales made as song. Now, he doesn't want to go too far, and that's another characteristic of peer-reviewed articles. He doesn't want to overstate his findings, and so he is also cautious. There are key words throughout that I hope you're in the habit of circling terms that you don't know and finding those definitions, or noticing when he is defining a term in a particular way. Again, this course is all about laying down a foundation for you in analysis so that you can get better at it as you go on. And on that note, I'm going to go ahead and preview for you one of the assigned readings for Thursday, and that's Interview with the Whale by Douglas H. Chadwick. And I hope that as you're reading it, you'll have Roger Payne in the back of your mind. I'll go ahead and tell you this article is way different than Roger Payne's. It's not peer-reviewed. It is very, very short, and it is not really trying to be a marine biologist's take on whales. So I hope you'll enjoy it. And again, one of the things I'm going to ask you to do is compare this piece by Douglas H. Chadwick as well as the piece by Weintraub to Roger Payne's article. So wanted to call attention to a few key features of Roger Payne's work so that you'll have that in your mind as you move forward to a couple more pieces about whales and whale song. That is all for now. Thank you.